Hello and welcome to another episode of Fully Charged Plus. I'm joined today by Greg from Zoom Eevee. I want to know what Zoom Eevee does, Greg.
100%. So my background actually is I used to work for BP, was in the Middle East and just became passionate about electric vehicles. You could just having the foresight around what was happening in energy systems, thinking about electric vehicles, saw the rise of Tesla. And that prompted me to go, look, this is very much where the future is going to be. And Zoom Eevee originally started looking at how are we going to move in the future and how can we move in better vehicles, electric vehicles, and do more with them. And ultimately, that's where we started.
Right. Because is the idea that if someone who wants an electric car comes to Zoom, you've got a lot more choices of how you would have an electric car. Can you lease, buy, hire? Is that the area that you're trying to cover? So
we do three things effectively. We have what's called our Eevee driver benefits bundle, and that is all around transitioning people to electric vehicles. So the misconceptions that you will know very well around public charging and range, how do we address those at the point someone's considering getting into a car and giving them access to the services they need to run them more efficiently and save them money? We've got a platform that aims to do around more with electric vehicles, so working with auto dealers to run their rental programs because they've got cars sat doing nothing, individuals sharing their cars, generating revenue, that sort of thing. And then naturally it led to people coming to us going, we're looking at leasing EVs, where can we go to? So whilst we didn't do it to start with, that's something that we're now helping people with as well. Right.
So someone could come to you and lease a new electric vehicle.
Yep.
And that through you. And what about insurance? Do you also cover insurance?
So we're about to launch a very exciting new partnership with one of the biggest insurers in the UK. And insurance, as you probably know, has always been a bit of a sticking point with electric vehicles, and it's just now catching up. So we do help people and guide them to the right insurers, yeah.
And so the bundles are really interesting. So can you explain a Zoom bundle? Let's say someone comes to you and leases a new electric car.
Yeah.
What else can they get through Zoom?
Well, what's really interesting, Robert, is that we actually started doing the bundle from our first fully charged exhibition back in, what would it have been, 2018 Silverstone. Yeah. And what happened was people were coming to us saying the experience of getting into an EV was terrible at that point. So we said, well, how do we improve it? What do we need to give people access to? So that bundle covers discounts across public charging networks, home charging solutions, energy tariffs, nationwide parking, EV accident management, and it brings it all together so that actually when you're transitioning to EV, you've got everything that you can think of to help make that transition easy, and we help guide people through that transition.
Because that is such a different, I have a certain jealousy for people who are getting electric cars now, because I went through the pain of all those things as a kind of isolated individual, because there wasn't anyone else.
No.
And there was no public charging. It was really difficult to charge a car. I would ring up an insurance company and they go, "What size engine is it?" And I go, "It's electric," and they just repeat the question. No, what size engine is it? They just couldn't. They just did not get it.
And some of the problems still exist today, right? So even with insurance, we just had someone insure a Porsche Taycan through one of our partners, Jardines. They actually refused to cover his car.
Right.
So there's all these things that actually are still barriers to people getting into electric vehicles. Right. And the companies we work with, so Jardines Motors Group, Hendy's Group, they want to provide that service for the people who are still struggling with thinking about going electric. How do you address those key things? And that's where that bundle helps them. We brand it for them. We help transition their customers to electric vehicles.
Right. But then the other thing is that I've become more and more obsessed with the more I sort of understand about the way it's things I never ever thought about when I had petrol cars. But the amount of time we're not using the cars we own. Yeah. And so therefore a car sharing idea, it makes me anxious.
Yeah.
As a car, I went, I don't want someone else driving my car. But actually, I'd much rather someone was driving an electric car I had than a combustion engine, just because there's less to go wrong with it mechanically. It's a much simpler machine. So you do a car sharing scheme as well. Which could I join that as an owner of an electric car?
You can indeed, yeah. Right. So it was all around how do we do, the problem really is that there's so many cars on the road. And transitioning to EVs is brilliant, but if everyone has an EV, you're kind of still going down the same problem, especially when the energy comes in. But how do you do more with better vehicles? And obviously, since the dreaded C word, or COVID-19, people are traveling less now. So actually that concept of having two things sat on your drive costing you money, actually how do you do something smarter? And especially with auto dealers, councils who have EVs, don't do anything on the weekends, how can you do something smarter with those cars that helps them offset the cost and achieve CO2 reduction because people are using the right types of vehicles? So we've got a lot of focus on auto dealers and helping them run kind of sharing or rental programs for plug-in vehicles, and our platform enables them to do that and have control of their cars.
So that is someone who might have 10, 15, 20 cars they're not using.
Yeah.
They could make, if nothing else, it's quite a good sales pitch. Yeah. Do you want to make some money out of those cars that are doing nothing at the moment? Yeah.
100%.
So I'm now joined by James, who's Chief Commercial Officer at Zoom Eevee. James, thank you very much for joining us today. I want to just go on, find out a little bit more about the bundles that you offer, because that just sounds like if you've never driven an EV before, a very reassuring prospect to have a bit of support around the experience.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that the key thing about driving an electric car is having the right services to have a good experience with the electric car. And as Greg mentioned earlier on, back in 2018, at Fully Charged, we were talking to EV drivers about what they needed, and a range of services were clearly needed that were well presented and with good offers, of course. Yeah. So we've put together the best in home charging, public charging, home energy, because if you drive an EV, you want to make sure you've got the right tariff for your EV. So for example, on my tariff, I can charge at a very low cost between midnight and 4 o'clock. And public parking. So we've put together all of those services wrapped up in one bundle, and that's the EV driver benefits bundle.
Right. So if you have that bundle, then and you go to a charge point operated by, it doesn't matter who, have you got access to that, or easier access to that charge point? Is that one of the deals that is involved in that?
It works where we have exclusive offers, Zoom offers to EV drivers, so they won't be able to get the same benefits at the price that we offer if they're not with Zoom EV.
Right. Oh, so they're
exclusive offers to EV drivers.
Right. Oh, brilliant. Right. Oh, that's very good. And then, so who do you partner with then to do that? Because presumably there's lots of other companies involved.
Yes, sure. So for home charging, we partner with EO Charging and with BP Pulse, that was at ChargeMaster. For public charging, we have the Plug Surfing network, we have BP Pulse, and we work with Osprey as well. And putting all of those public charging benefits together gives people options wherever they're based. BP Pulse might work in one area, the Osprey network might be better in another area, for example.
And use of that is kind of relatively frictionless then. You don't, when you go to a pub like a BP Pulse charger, you can plug in and tap. Do you have a card or an app?
Yes, so with the Zoom EV Driver Benefits Bundle, we have an exclusive offer for drivers to join the BP Pulse network, for example. So they join in the normal way, they get a discounted rate, they then get the access card or the app, they create an account, but they get an exclusive rate for that through Zoom.
And then what about the actual, where the cars come from originally? I mean, the auto dealers, presumably you've then got to have relationships with them as well.
Yeah, so that's been probably the most exciting thing that we've been doing over the last 12 months is building up our partnerships and relationships with auto dealers. And we're delighted to have some of the big brands that are now partners with us, the likes of Jardine Motors Group, Hendy's, Wayland's, for example. So they are, of course, a touch point for somebody that's going to drive an EV. They're the people that supply the car. And one of the things that's very important is education. So we actually support the auto dealers with their sales guys and their team, who are then interfacing with the EV driver to make sure that they've got everything that the driver needs in one bundle, with offers, a good deal for each of the offers, so that they can then give to their EV drivers, their customers, everything that they need to have a great experience with their electric car or their plug-in car. And that's why the bundle has been really successful.
Yeah, I can see that, because I mean that has definitely been a gap in the experiences. You can go to a dealership where the people who are selling you the car really don't know, a lot about electric cars.
And a lot of the work that we do at Zoom is working closely with the auto dealer, training them, supporting them, making sure that they fully understand. So we actually help them sell the Eevee, never mind giving the Eevee driver everything that they need.
Right. Well, the car sharing platform that Greg mentioned, that sounds very interesting, because that really is, you know, in the grand scheme of things, the more we can share cars, the less cars we need, effectively.
Yes,
how
absolutely.
It works, and it's kind of
I think globally we're moving from ownership to usership, and we're obviously all about electric cars, and we're about helping people transition into electric cars, and using that usership phrase means we're helping people get into an EV. The sharing platform originally started as peer-to-peer, so my car, for example, is on the sharing platform. People in the community around me can use my car, they can book it. But through the work that we've been doing with the dealer groups that we've just been talking about, actually they've got cars that are demonstrator cars that actually sit idle a lot of the time. So car sharing also looks at utilizing idle electric vehicles. But the statistics show that cars, not just EVs, but all cars sit idle on the drive, don't turn a wheel for over 95% of the time.
It's crazy. Every time I hear that, that is not what you would describe a sustainable model.
No. And over the last 12 months with the pandemic, that percentage is higher. So it's utilizing idle assets. All about EVs. So dealer groups using their assets, local authorities, some big fleets with local authorities. They're used in the week, they're not used at the weekend, utilizing those assets. We're actually working with some housing developers and putting electric cars into new housing developments and having it as a service to the community that they're developed the houses for. And big fleets where vehicles, including vans, it's not all about electric cars. So vans are out in the week, they're not used at weekends. So if you need a trip to IKEA or moving house, share a van.
But that would be really handy occasionally to be able to hire a van.
Exactly.
Yeah. Very good. And I mean, where do you see this going? I mean, have you got sort of potential plans for the future when the uptake of electric vehicles is much greater, there's far more people using them, and do you see this expanding?
So we all know that the uptake of EVs is growing. By 2030, you won't be able to buy a new petrol or diesel car. So all of the services that we offer as Zoom, and we're all about EVs, we're adding to the services are growing, more people are making use of the services. You know, we were founded in 2018, and now we're just seeing this growth, and there's only one way that this is going to go with the uptake of EVs.